everybody. Welcome to the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. We are super, super happy to be with you and have you with us. And we're going to crank out 2 episodes a week every week to make sure that you are being that lawyer, someone who's confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. And I'm just continually hearing from my rainmaker roundtables and the peer advisory groups that I'm running, the difficulty in hiring good people and just generally they're overloaded with work. Everybody's cranking out their hours and not able to delegate to the degree they'd like to. So I've had, Molly, how many times have you been on the show? Is it once or twice?
I think once. I think
Okay,
it's
so
my second time.
second time. Okay, well, they say second time's a charm. You were wonderful the first time, but I want to bring you back because you're just the tip of the spear in this specific subject that I want to knock out today, because attorneys need to delegate, they need to get out and do business development and market, and they need to continue to bring in good people. So we're going to hit that in a few minutes. Have to, of course, do the start of the show with the quote of the show. And here we go. It is, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. Just literally 20 seconds of just embarrassing bravery. And I promise you something great will come of it. It sounds like me at a bar. Anyway, when I was in my 20s, but Benjamin and me, that we bought a zoo guy. So welcome to the show, Molly. Thanks for coming back and talk to us about that quote.
I love that quote. I'll never forget. It was on Easter and my kids were little. I bought them that movie for their Easter basket and we watched it, and it was probably 10, 15 minutes into the movie and it just hit me like a cinder block. Being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, that scary feeling of when you need to hire, that scary feeling when you're going to let go of control and what have you.
Yeah.
And it just hit me. And I've lived by that every single time that I hit a ceiling in my business or my clients do. I'm like, just anchor to that, because guess what? If it doesn't work out, just take the leap. And if you track and measure it and it's not working out, you can stop it.
Yeah.
But staying stuck in fear, you're never going to be able to elevate and grow.
Yeah. And I think there's ways to make educated decisions without having to take such great risk, right? So like if I'm gonna, like I was just here. So one of my clients is Eric Gross Dubois, another client of mine, Ariana Tadler. These are amazing people, put them together. But Eric is he's going to come back on the show, but he's gotten to the point where as a managing partner, he's really just doing marketing and rainmaking, right? So he's not managing the people, the day-to-day. He's not out billing, 2,000 hours a year. And that's not something he just like said, I'm going to do today. Like he had to work his way and figure out how to do that. And I'm trying to get other lawyers that want to be in that same place to kind of do that. Yeah.
Yeah, they all want it. And, you see on Facebook and all these groups and what have you, like, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? And they're always chasing strategy, right? And yes, there's a bit of strategy, but before strategy, it becomes that courage. And I heard this quote once. It said, I just need to get confident. I just need to get the knowledge and what have you. You don't get that without courage. And it's just taking, so Eric, I love that I'm just bravo to him. But at some point, he had to take the leap of faith. And now, when he's a rainmaker and doing marketing, what have you, he could get an invitation to speak on a stage, be on a podcast, what have you. He's like, let's go.
Yeah.
Because he has proof of concept. And he's like, I'll figure it out. Preparation, of course. But it once you do that over and over and over again, it becomes gamification. It becomes really, really fun, because it's never, what if I make the wrong decision? Because you're in it, you're paying attention, you're aware, you're tracking it, what have you. And I tell attorneys that all the time when it comes to hiring. I can't afford an attorney for $125,000. I'm like, you're not writing $125,000 check up front. Let's take the monthly nut and let's gamify it, because it's not just the ROI on the new hire. If you're delegating and you're being replaced, now you have a new ROI. What's your ROI? What are you doing with your newfound time so you can elevate like Eric did?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just ways to scale and getting your mind wrapped around. And I know we're going to come back and hit it hard today. Let's take a step back though. Give everybody your background, because you seem to know quite a bit. And I want to make sure everyone knows where you're coming from.
Yeah, I entered the legal space in 1997. I started out with the organization, National Network of Estate Planning Attorneys, which I am forever grateful for. I started out as a project manager there, never worked with an attorney. Thank God, never dealt with an attorney in my personal life. So there's these stories on the shows and all the lawyer jokes and what have you. So I'm like, oh boy, what am I getting into? And I remember I went to a first conference and I was like, wow. I'd be at the breakfast table at the cocktail hour and I'd hear them just with so much, heavy weight on them about employees, about payroll, about running a business, scaling, what have you, tremendous amount of fear, but also determination to figure this out.
Yeah.
And I'd hear over and over again, business would be great, but for the employees. Employees are expensive. They don't want to work. They don't want to have you. And I got deeply curious. I was an employee at that time. Like, that's not the truth. I know that because I turned to the other side and they thankfully brought their employees to the conference and they would say, my job would be great if my attorney would just let go of control and stop being a control freak and
Hmm.
trust us that we got their back. I'm like, there's a massive disconnect here. So that's my why, that's my mission, that's my passion, is to really create employees into what I call intrapreneurs and really train them into becoming legal leaders, leading legal leaders. That's a tagline of my business.
Yeah.
And I'm just so passionate about the employees showing proof of concept to the attorneys. I'm like, they're never going to let go of control unless you can walk, talk, and act like a CEO, even if you're quote unquote just a receptionist. You have to give them proof of concept that this won't be a one and done, that you have their back, that you understand their world. And so one of the things I would do is I'm like, shadow your attorney for 1 week. And when I hire and go through onboarding, that's the first week. I want you to just shadow your attorney for 1 week. Let's start on Monday. Let's meet on Friday. I cannot tell you how many employees, attorneys, marketing coordinators, receptionists, paralegals, Friday we come together, do a debrief. They're literally in tears. They're like, they didn't even get time to go to the bathroom, have a glass of water. I didn't see them eat all week. They would come out of back-to-back
Mm.
meetings. And there's a line of people waiting to delegate back up to them. And so they're like, I'm protecting my attorney. And it's really wonderful. I'd like to get them on the same playing field, speaking the same language, operating by the same rule book. And then once you can demonstrate that over and over again, it's sky's the limit. I start seeing attorneys delegating like crazy because they have the tracking, they have the measurement, they have the reporting, and people are coming to them with proposed solutions, not buckets of problems.
Yeah. Let's I want to keep on line with where you're going with this, but I'm a big take a step back guy, and I've got two questions for you that I want to roll out before we kind of go into start like talking about solutions and talking about how we can advise the people listening on how to best delegate and find good people and all that. What are you seeing as the current state of the legal marketplace right now, related to like number of there's a very low, I think, unemployment rate with attorneys. It's, I know, like 0.03 or some insane number, very, very low. All attorneys are kind of working at this stage if they want to. But what are you seeing as kind of this current state of the legal market right now?
Your statistics are right on. That's for
Mm.
attorneys. For paralegals, it's about 1.2 was the last number unemployment rate that I've seen. So legal staffing and recruiting has changed. And I think recruiting in general has changed forever. It has shifted from you're lucky to have my job to sales, selling your firm, selling your culture, things of that nature. The good news, people are not balking about billable hours. They're not balking about doing the work. I see that people really want to. They're interviewing law firms, by and large, owner, operator, whoever they're going to be working with, more than ever. And it's not about what are the benefits, what are the bonuses, no, it's not about that because they don't want to job hop. They don't have to job hop. And if they're making a move to a new law firm, it has to be a better culture. And I know
Okay.
that word is so fuzzy right now. People are treating it like a TJ Maxx home sign. hanging on it background. They really want you to show them the math, if you will, walk them through their day, what it's going to look like. And I hear over and over and over again, it's about communication.
Okay.
It's about when are we going to meet? What are the communication standards within the firm? Things of that nature. So recruiting's change. The days of throwing an ad up and waiting for people to apply it is over. If there is anybody unemployed in this market right now, it's a red flag. Step one.
Hmm.
Unless they have a very compelling story
Yeah.
that they're applying for a job. They're by and large transitioning, moving back home, spouse's job got changed, things of that nature, and they're not on the market very long. So these very old school traditional legal staffing structures have to change. There's no more, okay, I get a resume, let me wait until next Tuesday to reply. They'll be gone and they'll have 5 offers on the table.
Yeah. So then that all being said, what are the top challenges that law firms are having to actually then get? Is it that they don't have a solid recruiter? Is it that they don't openly market their culture and why it's a great place to work? Like, what are you seeing them kind of miss the boat on?
I love that. There's 3 things I would say. Number 1, the job ad that you're putting out there. The old school job ads of qualifications, requirements, where it's very, very much a long page anymore does not work.
Mm,
It needs to be written like a Match.com ad, like you're trying to land your wife. It needs to be very heavy, heavy SEO rich, and it very much has to communicate their culture. So where they can, the shorter the better, the keep more keywords in there, the better. Again, people aren't applying, but when you go to recruiting and finding passive candidates, they always have to go back to the ad. And I cannot tell you how many people will say to us, the only reason I'm talking to you is because of that ad. It's different than any other ad that I see out there. So it's written very much in their perspective, like a sales, like you would for a Facebook lead generation ad in some regards. Why you should come work with us, why we're the best in our area of law and in our marketplace. It's number 1. Number 2 is that attorneys are trying to either do the recruiting on their own or they'll have somebody on their team, HR, office manager, paralegal, do it in between a heavy workload. So in this day and age, I would say fine if you're going to go out in the marketplace and start hiring, have somebody dedicated to 24/7 until the position is filled, because time kills all deals.
mm,
And in this day and age, I mean, recruiters in the Philippines I have 4 recruiters in the Philippines are phenomenal.
mm.
And they are better than any other recruiter. So, I have a recruiting agency, but I'll tell you, you don't even have to necessarily go, you can go to overseas, find a full-time person to do all of your recruiting for you, sourcing, staff, and interviewing and handling that. So you have to have somebody full-time on this. Doesn't mean you have to pay a recruiter. Get somebody either in-house, and if you don't have the luxury of that because they have to get work out, go and get somebody
Okay.
overseas.
So
Number
maybe real quick before you go to number 3. That might be the middle ground between doing it yourself and paying whatever 20-30% of a salary to a recruiter is trying to find that overseas organization that can do it for you.
Yeah, I'd say if you're doing it yourself, you're better off not even doing it at all.
Okay. Interesting.
It is shark-infested waters out there.
Okay. Got it.
It really is. And by and large, my most successful placements are all poaching. And so I'll add number 3, which is poaching is the way that's really working. And you can't do it yourself as a law firm because there's some, I don't know, unspoken rule out there that if a law firm reaches out to you, don't talk to them because they're afraid that, they're being set up or what have you, but they'll talk to a recruiter. So you can even have somebody overseas as your recruiter.
Yeah.
And then I'd add one other thing. Video is working like crazy.
Mm.
So when you have your recruiter or in-house employee that's going to do this for you, have a video. And for anyone listening to this, I'd be happy to share the script that we use. And it's working because it's being a disruptor with all the other lazy recruiters out there. You have a video of you saying, here, you know, here's the deal, here's our culture, here's why we're the best firm to work for, etc. That hands down is why
Hmm.
we're able to place attorneys, paralegals, non-attorney salespeople, all the positions.
So that video is being emailed out by the firm or by the overseas recruiter as a way of saying, hey, this is me, this is where, and trying to get people to then say, yeah, this sounds interesting, I'll respond.
Yes, it's
Okay.
amazing. So they're
Wow.
inboxing them, however, either on LinkedIn or, you know, my recruiters are, they'll find them on Facebook, they'll search them down. We buy lists, things of that nature, we'll inbox it to them. And our response to the video is extraordinary because they already see your office in the background. They already see your tonality. They see your energy. And we all know that it's the energy that you bring in the room and leave in the room that matters.
Well, and then how important then as a backup is to then also have a decent website or some LinkedIn profile or something, because I think if they see your video, then they go to your website and it's from the 80s or 90s or whatever, it's just forever old. And it's, three white guys sitting on the cover with the skyline in the background. I mean, so I think it's got it right. There's probably going to be some research done too.
There's a ton of research, and I love that you brought that up because sometimes I'll have law firms that have bad reviews on Glassdoor
Mm,
or from past employees, and or to your point, they don't have a social media presence or their website is very outdated. I'm like, name it right there. So in the video, I will have people say, I know our website's outdated, what have you. We are so busy. This is why I need you
yeah.
associated with me because we haven't had time that. So once I can get freed up, I'm working with my marketing
Okay.
team. I just hired someone like Steve. I'm working with a business consultant and things of that nature, and they love it. Or even when they have bad reviews, they'll literally say that. They're like, listen, you're going to find bad reviews about us on Glassdoor, our past employees. I get it. When I was started out early, I didn't have a business consultant. I didn't have what have you. I was running the firm. It was a dumpster fire. But now I know better and I'm investing in this. This is why we're growing. This is why we have more clients
Okay.
and we are on a rebuild.
So you're addressing the elephant in the room versus ignoring it and hoping that people don't see it, but they are.
And they love it because guess what? You're vulnerable and it shows that you take responsibility for when
Mm,
you make mistakes. And
okay.
that one statement alone sells.
Wow, that's great. I love it. I love it. Um, so when I know another concern that lawyers and law firms have right now is how high the salaries have been driven up over the last through the pandemic and everything. And I want to touch on that. And I also want to touch on the virtual versus the Zoom versus or the what's it called? Virtual, what is it called? Virtual versus in person.
In-house. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Virtual.
virtual versus in-house and in the hybrid and all that. So, but let's start with the numbers because is it just me or does it seem like lawyers have never made more?
It's every position, quite honestly. It's
Okay.
paralegals. I mean, you hire a client service coordinator, the average fee that they want is $60,000 a year. When we were used to paying just a receptionist 15 bucks an hour or what have you, it's everyone. It's
Okay.
inflation. It's people that have invested in personal and professional development. So they're finally owning their value and things of that nature. It's not going down. So just you have to swallow that pill. I do too with my own business. But again, it goes back to gamification. So if you were hoping to get an attorney for $100,000 and now you're seeing 125 or 150, whatever it might be, you have to break it down into weeks and months and quarters and not look at the annuals. What I do, and then figuring out how you're going to get that ROI on them, plus whoever they're replacing, because you're freed up to do other initiatives, rainmaking, marketing, what have you. And so it's not that they're entitled. It is not that it's what the market's bearing, number one. And then number two is because if they're really truly a rock star, now people are so aware about KPIs and ROIs and the average case value and things of that nature. They're understanding how they're going to make money for the firm.
Mhm. So
So
is it, but is there I apologize interrupting you, but this is, where I want to go is exactly where you are with what is the ROI? If I'm bringing in $150,000 associate, all right, how much based on hours should I actually make as an owner? If I'm paying out 150, what should come into the firm?
I like to say that you're at least doubling it within 60 days. So if you're paying them 150, that they're generating 300 by within 60 days, because you have to remember, at least this is what I teach. It's not just the attorney. Everybody's KPIs shift. So right down to the client service coordinator. Now they can make follow-up calls, more follow-up calls on those leads, because your calendar is not jam-packed. So now you got 2 calendars that are open for consultations, what have you.
Mhm.
So it's things like that. And then also, what are you doing as the attorney now that they're taking over? And I always tell people, don't make it about dollars and hours, make it about what step in the process are they taking over. I just had a meeting with a family law attorney this morning. She's like, I don't really like going to court anymore unless it's high net worth cases or what have you. I'm like, all right, great. How many of those do you want a month? She's like, 5. I'm like, great. So your associate's taking over. Look at where you're freed up now with all just taking on the high net worth cases. They can take on the rest of them. You're only taking highly contested, what have you. Now let's look on the ROI of them. Now you're freed up 17 hours a week. They're taking over the initial consultation. They're taking over this step. And then we hired overseas for the things that do not require an attorney or an in-house paralegal.
Got it. Got it. And then what's the training regimen for a new hire? Because you could, bring someone on, say, here's your desk, there's your phone. Like we'll start throwing work your way, second, third, fourth year associate, whatever. But there's a better way.
There's a better way. My motto is always teach, show, do, go, grow. So the way that
Wait,
people
slow down and say that again. That was really good.
teach,
Teach.
show, do, go, grow. So you teach them. So often attorneys will be like, all right, go look at Clio or Lawmatics or whatever it might be. You have all the moving pieces that they need. They need CRM for entering time, for following the workflow, the steps in the process, but then they also have to be in the conference room and understand the role. I always say shadow each step of the process. So shadow 3 depositions, shadow 3 mediations, and follow the attorney that you're replacing in there. And your job is to do a pre, during, and post huddle. So we're walking into this mediation. My guess is it'll take 3 hours or half a day or a full day. Here's what I'm expecting. I want you to pay attention to this for my role as the attorney, which will be your role, then the role of the client, and then also the role of the paralegal. What happens with that file when we walk out of here? So it's almost like an assembly line where they can see it. You teach them it, you show them that, and then they're able to model it, and then you watch them and witness it, and then they're off to the races and go. I believe you can onboard any position within your law firm within 30 days and be hands off in 30 days if you do that right. If you have the SOPs done, but it's also in motion in your CRM as a workflow, and they actually physically sit in every step of the process, and it's clear. Here's step 1. Now we're in step 17. And then keep asking yourself over and over again. And I tell them, your job coming in, the best person to test a system and or a process to see if we have it, give it to somebody who's never been here before, the new kid on the block. Because the goal is there to be like a 5-year-old and keep asking, why are we doing it this way? And 9 out of 10 times it's like, great question, because that's how we've always done it. Well, what if, and then doing a daily huddle every single day where you treat it like a locker room huddle before you go on the Super Bowl playing field. What did you witness? What did you take away? What do you believe your next step is?
Yeah, really, really good. Um, let's go the other way. What happens when you hire someone at 150 and in that first 30 days, you've done some good things, right? Like you're suggesting, and there's all these warning signs that say this may not have been the best decision. They're not showing up. They've got excuses. What you bought is not what you got.
I love that question. First of all, it should not take 30 days. If you
Okay.
are properly training and onboarding them, you will see that within probably week 2. You're like, huh, maybe they're new. But a lot of times we're like, well, they don't know enough. They haven't been here long enough. No, how people do one thing is how they do everything. So you know when you're training someone, and if you do this teach, show, do, grow model, and you walk out of the step in the process, the meeting, the hearing, whatever it might be, and you're like, all right, give me your debrief. You know, they should be giving you a presentation. If they're like, it went great, I don't have anything. And I'm even talking right down to the receptionist. I have receptionists do this. If you're not getting that feedback, and you're not getting that they were present in the room, you know, if they're not saying, okay, great, in meeting 1, you did this, but it's same type of meeting, you did it differently the second time. And I think the reason you did it was because of blah, blah, blah. Then you're like, great. But if you were getting deer in the headlights, I have no questions, things of that nature, and there's not collaboration and banter with it, from my perspective, they're not present, they're not engaged. And as EOS says, do they GWC, get it, want it, and have the capacity for it? You can't train that.
Yeah. And you can't fix stupid is something I heard a long time ago too, but that's a different, but you know, bad attitudes, negative people, people that just don't have the capacity that you needed to get this done and to make a decision, I think quick and early, better than letting it drag out because you're a nice person and it's at the cost of your firm, and your money. So,
Yeah.
man, so many. I mean, I'm having Molly speak at my Rainmaker Roundtable in about an hour. But I wanted to wrap up. I mean, just so many great things that you're sharing that lawyers need to hear this. They're on an island figuring it out, and they need to hear what you're saying, Molly, because it's really, really important. Um, your game-changing book, 10 times is easier than 2 times, or 2x, whatever.
UX.
Talk
10x.
about, yeah, 10x is better than 2 or is easier than 2x. So sorry, I screwed that up. What
Yeah.
talk about that book. Why is that your game-changing book?
It almost goes hand in hand with the quote of all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. Because when you do it very slow and methodical, it's painful,
Mm.
it's exhausting, what have you. And for you to go from whether it's 1 million to 5 million or what have you, it's how you get to 5 million is about the speed of how you're able to let go, how you're able to delegate, how you're able to take risks. It's a phenomenal book by Dan Sullivan, founder of Strategic Coach.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, I can always anchor to this word. I do this when I make decisions in my business. It's about gamification. Let's have fun with this because I will know in 2 weeks, not 30 days, if it was a bad hire. And I will rip the band-aid off sooner. Is the work going to come back to me? Yes. But I will do it smarter, better, faster, wiser the next time.
Yeah.
And so then you refine your process and everything when you're interviewing, whether it's a marketing agency or it's a associate attorney or whatever position. So it's so much easier when you kind of take the backpack, the heavy war backpack off your back and have fun with it. But again, have all of your metrics in
Yeah.
place. Make certain that you're making time hardwired in your calendar every single week to be able to look and track and measure it and ask yourself the question, is this a hell yes or is this a hell no? If it's a maybe, you're trying to convince yourself.
Mm. Been there, done that. I like everybody, so that's why I try to stay out of hiring. I love everybody, but that's my problem. Um, so as we wrap up, one of course thank our wonderful sponsors, Lawmatics, Get Staffed Up, and of course PimCon coming up for the personal injury attorneys in September. Check that out, and make sure you use the Be That Lawyer discount code to get a deal. Molly, thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you to hear more about your services, to engage you, to just learn more, what's the best way for them to reach you?
LinkedIn, of course, and you go to hiringandempowering.com, my website. I try to really put a tremendous amount of value in there, drop a podcast every Tuesday, drop a blog every Thursday, and a pocket coaching every Saturday. So you can opt in and get a tremendous amount of tips and techniques like we talked about today.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming back on the show, sharing your wisdom. Again, I think a lot of attorneys are in a position where they want to delegate and want to hire. And there's just, again, that fear and that angst and that anxiety about it. So you've really resolved a lot of that today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have you back soon too. And I'm going to see you like in an hour, but for everybody listening, listen, hopefully you got some great ideas and tips. Even if you're not in a position to hire right now, it's all about delegating, whether it's an admin, whether it's a marketing person. I mean, you work your way out of jobs that are not what you should be doing. And that's what you're getting on this show, the Be That Lawyer podcast with Fretzin. Take care, everybody. Be safe, be well. We'll talk again soon.